Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway. I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man.
He said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went and we'd run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was... I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out in the pond. I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Welcome to the Nash Off the Hook podcast. We've got a bit of a special episode. I've brought the boys back.
Rolling back the years.
Alfie and Dan, how are you boys? Good?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. You?
Living the dream, mate, in the studio. It's good to have you two back. It's been a long time since you boys have featured on a podcast, I think. When was your last one? You did a debate.
That would have been my last one, which would have been a year ago.
Was it? What about you, Dan? Swayze?
It must have been, which is like 18 months ago, 2022. End of 2022, so yeah, well over a year ago. I haven't done one in ages.
Both of you two boys were ill over the Christmas period, otherwise you'd have featured on that, wouldn't you? You weren't well, but
I was
you were
fine,
due to do that.
but I was testing positive, which I just feel I wouldn't have cared. I would have come in. I can hear the conspiracy theorists shouting at me now. It's not real, but I think I was positive. So like I didn't want to come in and like get everyone ill for Christmas, whether COVID is real or not. I was ill, so
let's not go down this wormhole, mate. Fishing wise, you done much?
No, to be honest. I was so like, that's the truth of it, really. No, I haven't done any in ages. But last time I went fishing, I can't even say where we went because it's a secret. But then it's just been so busy with
was that the last time you went fishing back?
Yeah, it was the trip that.
Wow.
Well, this year, wasn't it? The film will come out. Is it this year? The film last time I went fishing. Yeah, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, and then before that, it would have been. The canal boat. Me and Al on the canal boat.
Only
it was back in
shoes.
September.
I was going to say you haven't really done anything like personal fishing wise.
No,
a long time,
I know. Football season's been busy and it's just been cold and horrible.
Yeah.
Nothing like advocating going fishing in the cold.
Get out there.
I work for a fishing company.
You've been doing a bit recently though, Dan, haven't you?
I've done a little bit since I've come off Swavesy. I didn't get a ticket last year, and I was just sort of flitting about doing a bit of this, bit of that. Every year I say I'm gonna do a winter campaign this year. I'm gonna do it, and I end up just not doing it. It's really hard to find that venue in it, like the ultimate winter venue where it's good for bites all year, but there's a target fish in there.
Royston, mate. That's where you should have gone.
Where there's a target fish in there. But so I've not had anything this year. Again, I was really, really gunning for I'm going to go carp fishing all winter. It fell through. I don't know. I'll say I was fishing somewhere where I probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
For quite a bit last year, stashed a bit of kit in there, pushed the limits a little bit of where I stashed my kit. As it come into the winter, I was like, well, not as many people be walking around and that, and maybe it'd be nice to be able to just go in, flick a couple of rods out, do a day session, leave, and that. And then I went in and someone stole all my stuff. Which was...
I didn't know that. I haven't heard this story. I know where you
keep
fishing.
Myself to,
I didn't know
myself,
He's so underground, isn't he, mate?
Look at his hoodie.
Loose lips sink ships, boy. But yeah, so that put an end to that. So if anyone's listening to this from my neck of the woods, found some kit and thought they'd have it, there's a couple of bits I'd love to have back.
We'll put a list up. No, we won't.
My mate Loz got me like a Leatherman's knife for his wedding when I was his best man for his wedding, engraved it and that, and I'd left that in with my kit.
Oh no.
So that is like a particular bit which would be lovely to get back, but it's gone in it. So, and my little boat, the Seed Merchant,
gone. You
So
never know.
It's got your name on it at Leatherman's.
No.
Oh, I was going to say, because they'll know exactly who was there. Then.
And I ummed and ahed of whether to like put it out on my stories, like, I will light this place up if you don't give me my stuff back. And I was just like, look,
Leave it.
Play silly games, win silly prizes. The prize was someone stole my stuff.
We live and learn, mate. But
Live and learn.
you look like you're focused on a bit. You've got a bit coming up, haven't you, mate?
Yeah. Got a new ticket. I'm going to fish on St Ives this year. I'm going to try and hit it quite hard, and really give it a good go. But work dependent, innit? I always end up saying that and then not really doing as much as I'd like or as much as I probably need to. But it's quite close to home for me, so I can get down there quite regularly and just hopefully just do the same old thing again.
Yeah, go and sly out the big one. That'll happen, mate. I reckon it will. I look forward to seeing it. You guys have brought me in here. You went, boys, let's do a podcast. I'm here.
What about you? What have you been fishing?
I have not. I've done a bit on Raspberry. When I say a bit,
What? Not
a couple of sessions
this
since
year.
the start of the year.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to Shearwater.
Weather's been mega though, hasn't it?
Weather's been mega, but it's been wet as, hasn't it? It's been
last
absolutely
couple
grim,
of weeks.
mate.
Yeah.
Raspberry unsuccessful, but bait in some areas. Seen a few, so they are about, but tough. Went to Shearwater, did some filming for Catch.
Yeah.
Never been there before in my life. Unbelievably beautiful place apart from the road, and sloppy spotted over zigs and proceeded to have absolutely loads. It
I was going to
carnage.
say it's good for a bite down there, isn't it?
My God, is it good for a bite? It's too much, mate.
Yeah.
I don't need that. Do you know what I mean? 10 and then wind them in. But very good for a bite. Very good for a bit of confidence on the old sloppy spotting zigs. And nicked a 20-pounder.
Happy
which,
days.
to be fair, out of there, apparently is pretty decent.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing massive in there, I don't think.
I was thinking Clearwater, and I was going to say, surely you're expecting somebody for you at Shearwater. Completely different ball game, isn't it?
Clearwater and Shearwater.
Other end of the country, then.
Literally. No, but apart from that, which is a fair bit for me in this time of year, not a lot. Maybe a few pike trips and a perch trip in Holland.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That was good.
Got winded out though, didn't you?
Gutted, really. Absolutely gutted. It's like turning up to Wimbledon and it chucking it down with rain and you can't play.
Yeah.
He was luckily enough, he got us out for a couple of hours and he knew what he was doing, and we caught a fair few zander and one. It weren't chunky, but it was long perch. But I can't wait to get back out there. That fishing is mega. It's just something else, different level. Massive sheet of water, huge, and huge perch.
You ever done anything on like Grapham?
Done Rutland, done Grapham.
Right.
It's not.
Is it not?
You don't have that size of fish. It's like ridiculous.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous, those perch. But even still, like just the type of fishing, the work he did on the like GPS and all the low rant systems, like it's different gravy. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, they know what they're doing, those boys.
Yeah, I went for a perch session on Grapham like before Christmas, and I've got fancy low rants echo, and I was like, how hard can it be? I just bowl around this boat, see a ball of a bait fish, and just throw lures at it, and then you catch a 4-pounder. That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Mate, like in this wind, I thought you just drift over them, see the ball, drop an anchor, easy. But you're in like 30 foot, anchor wasn't long enough. Me and my mate in the wind trying to throw this drogue out, trying to get that to work. Go drift over it, ball's gone. Where is it? Spin round, there it is. You waste an hour just like trying to work a boat.
Mate,
so it's like, I was going to say, if you're experienced in it, wow, what an art. But
it was absolute. When I mean, like, it's a big sheet of water, it's open, there's like big shipping containers coming through it. It literally goes out to sea. It was whacking it with wind. When I mean whacking it, you can feel it on the bank. You knew when you were getting out in it was going to be tasty. For him to even manoeuvre you to be able to actively like fish lures was incredible, to the point where we did 2 hours and his battery and his motor to like stabilise us was on like 4% because he just drained it, keeping us steady. Yeah. But like to put us on fish, and then the side scan and the actual, you could see your lure working, you could see what.
Oh, we had that like live view thing. Yeah.
Some tech on it though, but completely different level, but brilliant. I'd definitely go back, mate. It's a good bit of sport. But yeah, that's my fishing, boys.
Yeah, nice.
You've got me in it to do a best bit show.
Absolutely.
Of the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a while, isn't it?
You've got a few episodes to go through when you think about it. What
How
number
many
are you on? Yeah.
This will be, I think, depending on when it goes out, it'll be 175 or 176.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's up there.
I remember typing it in when it was me and you doing it. It was like episode 3, like 100, and that was series 2, episode 1. So there's another. So if you put the first and second, you're nearly 200 episodes, isn't it? Well, I actually see I think we're 1.5 million downloads now.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it? It's a lot of
not bad.
downloads, boy.
1.5 million downloads. Actually, that's not bad at all.
That's a lot of people talking about cart.
Yeah,
a lot of people talking about cart.
It's a cart. Mate, it's been 3 and a bit years. 3 and a bit. Yeah, 3.5.
Time flies, mate.
It's gone quick.
Yeah.
It's a blast. I remember that first one with you boys in there, sitting there.
I was just saying before we start, I remember sticking this insulated sound foam stuff on the walls.
I did it.
Yeah, I helped.
Oversaw, did you help?
Yeah. No, I come
Popping
in.
in. Yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. See you
Looks
later.
good, that.
No, I
Looks good.
built one of those chairs that you sat
Yeah, I
on.
think we did actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my first edit was because you gave me an episode and then I did mine. My first edit was Gaz Fareham. You romanticising over Gaz.
Poor guy.
There's a lot of editing in that.
But that doesn't seem that long ago. 3.5 years ago, that was.
It's 2019, wasn't it?
And every week you've done one.
Yeah.
Every week.
There might be a week that is blacked out in the memory banks, but it's definitely a live episode that
Yeah,
went
I
live.
was going to say, we never, well, you never missed a week. The whole time you've been here, every single week we've had one out, which I think for this relatively small industry, you look at like those big podcasts we were talking before we went live about like the James English ones.
Yeah.
Like the pool of guests is bottomless.
Yeah.
But here it's not really. So I think to do.
No, it's not. Yeah. To be fair, guess wise, it ain't been that. It's a bit hard sometimes because you're at the mercy of somebody else, aren't you?
Yeah.
I can't sit here and just waffle. I can. I'm good at that, but I can't just waffle to myself. So you are a bit at the mercy of it. But I can honestly say, hand on heart, in terms of guests, there's been very few in that 175 at any point where I've been like let down last minute. Everybody's been sound at getting involved, getting stuck in.
Name and shame.
I can't really think of
Who's let you down?
Only Lloydie in the last
Scott
one.
Lloyd. He came
Scott
here.
Lloyd. I mean, that burns me to this day, to be fair, because it's so recent.
I was going to say, he's came here. He's had the most out of us in terms of beauty queen from under our noses, our massive noses. And I've got a good story about that, actually. But then he's pied you off on our podcast.
He's done me.
Because he was ill. But he came and fished the church. We see you, Scott.
He's done me a rotter. To be fair, his first podcast, absolutely epic. Very open, very honest.
Yeah.
Loads of good stuff in there. I was going to get him back to talk about his campaign for not his Will and Fish, the other one. I was going to talk about the croc. That's what I was going to talk about. He turned up on site. How far's the church? What? 100 metres?
Yeah.
100 metres down there. He was there for 4 nights. He said on the first night, I'm too ill, I just need to fish. So he didn't do the podcast and
He's
pied me
had
off.
your pants down, mate.
To be fair play to him. Well done.
Yeah, let me tell you this little story. It's quite funny. I don't know if I told you this.
What's this?
So I've been on a few films now, right, in the last year or so. Little Danny Yo, he's hit the big leagues. I've gone over to my girlfriend's brother's for the weekend, and he's on a farm and he runs this pumpkin patch. And he always, as people like family members who don't fish do, he always quizzes you on it. He thinks it's quite cool that I work in the industry, and I even saying
He thinks it's cool.
well, it's different, isn't it? So it's always a talking point. Not only do they fish, but it's just like what? And then now you film people fishing. Now people are filming you fishing. I was like, yeah. There's a couple of videos on YouTube. Anyway, we're at this pumpkin patch, and there's people coming going, and he's taking the money and selling the pumpkins and whatnot. And this guy's bowled over, and Sam's making conversation with him, going, "Oh, where are you from?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just down the road." And Sam's like, "Oh, I don't really know where that is." It's actually not far from where we're based. So I was like, "Oh, I know where that is. I'm in just outside Chelmsford or whatever. Like, oh, we're just here." And he goes, look at me. I was like, "Oh,
Here we go.
he's recognised me here. He's recognised me. Sam's gonna love it. Sam's gonna love it." So this guy's looking at me. He's like, "I recognise you." I was like, "Oh, do you?" God, I can't go anywhere.
Another fan.
Can't go anywhere these days. Can't go anywhere. He go, "Oh, do you fish, don't you?" I was like, yeah. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, for Nash." And I was like, yeah. Sam's loving it. He's like, "Oh, my God, like, Dan's been recognised by someone." Like, I thought it was just, and I was, what is it like? What is it like? He goes, "Yeah, I can't put a name to you, but like, do you know I knew it was you?" I was like, "No way." He goes, "Your big nose."
Oh, brutal, mate.
Sam's on the floor. Sam is pissing himself.
Oh, that's bad.
And I'm just like, "What do you mean?" He was just like, "I just saw you side on and like your big nose, and I just knew it was you." I was like, "I don't know you. Why are you
digging me
He's
out
digging me out.
live.
And I was just like a bit speechless, like, "Oh, thanks." He was like, "But it's all right, because I know you all take the piss out of it and that." So I was like, "They're my friends, mate. You're a stranger." He's like, yeah. So that's how I do it. I'm not really seeing your videos now. I just stop digging a hole, mate. Stop digging a hole.
Yeah, then he knows, doesn't he? When you're not laughing, he's in a very difficult
And
place.
he just kept going. He kept going. But he's big though, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, he's got a point.
Anyway,
I'm with him.
Nothing
I'm
wrong
not
with that.
denying it, but
Nothing wrong with that. It's a distinguishing feature, that is.
and he left, and Sam was just in bits because I was all like, oh yeah, look, in front of Sam, I've been recognised, and
He
then
left a lasting impression with your carpet angling. You know, he's thinking that guy knows his stuff. No, he's just got a massive hooter.
yeah, this guy's a pro. No, he's just got a massive schnoz. Cheers.
What a pumpkin patch meeting
Yeah,
that
so
is,
sorry,
mate.
absolute digression there, but I thought it was quite a funny story.
I think we did get a few nose comments on our Doddy Lane video, mate, the last episode of that drop.
Yeah, they're definitely.
We have got massive noses, mate. There's nothing wrong with that.
What is it? Smell a roast on a Wednesday, or is it? Smell a Sunday roast on a Wednesday. Yeah, I love that one.
Tommy has said that to me about 100 times in the last 2 months. Like, I can't say it, but he goes, this guy here, smell a Sunday roast on a Thursday. Cheers, mate.
Classic Tommy, mate. But yeah, we're going to look back, aren't we, at some of the best bits, and you've given me the classic sort of iconic
175 episodes we've got to look
no
at.
great answer. You can't answer this, can you? What's your best What's your best bits? Well, they've all been pretty good in different aspects and different regards, and you've asked me to try and pick some out. So I've picked out 5. I can't remember all 175, but the ones that I think will be relevant for a fair few people, I've picked out, but there are loads. Mate.
Yeah.
Loads for different reasons.
Because, like, let's be honest, the listeners won't have listened to every single one.
No.
I haven't. There's definitely
You haven't?
Yeah.
Shit. There's definitely loads that I missed or forgotten. So, like, we're going to have a little review of some of the best bits. There's definitely loads to go back and listen to if you haven't.
Well, there's 175 of them, so knock yourself out. There's a few hours in there, buddy.
There must have been definitely some guests that, you know, you were genuinely buzzing when the call came in and you went, yeah, I'll do it. And you're like, wow, I didn't think I'd get that chance, or I didn't think we'd get them on. Because it is hard, right? It is hard being a company in a small industry. I was always scared when we started that it would be limited to people who fish for Nash or work at Nash. But what I think is really cool, and I think it shows like how tight-knit the industry is, that like, you know, we'd have people from Corda on, or we'd have people from other companies on, and it's not like, well, we're not doing theirs because we're competitors. I think it's quite nice, and that you've managed to dip into, and, you know, have loads of lads from Sticky Baits or Thinking Anglers or whoever.
Yeah.
Like,
I've enjoyed that, but I think that's the most enjoyable part, is like the spectrum of anglers, but also the fact that, no, I mean, as much as we work for different brands, everybody is pretty much all mucking with everything. You know, we're all mates. Everybody knows everybody. It is small. But also, like, the more I'd done, I just thought, like, especially with some of the, like, proper old school characters, I thought, like, there isn't really any modern day history of any of this. There's a few archives, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but in terms of, like, from the horse's mouth, and, well, one of the episodes and one of the highlights is somebody who's no longer with us. Like, that is a piece of history that will stay there on YouTube as a chronicle from that person. Can't really be interpreted any other way. It's not like a book or where you think, oh, was he trying to say that? Or he's just there telling you it. I think, like, over a course of time, those 175 sort of episodes, there is everything from sort of your modern day angler to sort of somebody who has made the scene or founded the scene in some regard or another. And they're all sort of chronicled on there forever. I quite like that element as I was going through them. Because I thought, you probably ain't going to hear from him, like, in an honest way. He ain't going to write a book. Yeah. He ain't going to leave another imprint. There's at least something there tangible that people can get back on.
There's people who know that story because they were from that era, or they heard it word of mouth, but, like, that will go one day.
100%.
That will just disappear unless, And
I might be looking at it through complete rose-tinted glasses and nobody gives a sauce and we'll never see it again. But it is there if somebody wants to search for it and sort of hear from that person directly without any sort of, you know what it's like when you see an article, you don't know how much of it's written, a book, even that. But yeah, I enjoyed that element, especially with some of the older guests and some of the spectrum of people. Like, I've been so lucky. I have punished up a fair few people, but, like, everybody has been, and I can't thank them enough, they've been sound as. They've always gone, yeah, if I can't do it now, well, let's look at this time, I've got a bit of space. And it speaks volumes for here, because I don't know if they'd come into every place, do you know what I mean? It's been welcoming, like, we've had everyone in pretty much. It's been mad. A few that got away, but such is life.
Yeah.
You can see they appreciate it, a lot of them as well, you know, like, you got your more known people, and then obviously not everyone's well known. Obviously you wouldn't have had guests past a year, do you know what I mean? But the ones that are less known, you see it on the Facebook, Instagram, they're sharing it. Look, I'm on the podcast as well. Like, you see it sharing to their family and that. Like you said, it's something to look back on, isn't it? In terms of,
I think
from their point of view.
And it's also good that like there's a lot of them out there, like you say, who aren't like massive names compared to like some people in the industry. So you get some people on and like it goes down really, really well. And it just proves that everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone's got a little story to tell. And there's always going to be someone who's going to sit there and listen to that story. Not everyone's going to listen to every story, horses for courses, but there's loads which have done really, really well, better than we would have expected. There's
been some mad ones that have done really well. I think, Benji.
Yeah, that's the one that always sticks out in my mind. Like, lovely lad, Benji, but like not loads of people know who he is. But the podcast just resonated with people. But that's him as a person, It's he's a people guy. Like
Kilgore, there's loads of them, mate. That like again that have been you wouldn't expect would. I don't know. It's probably a horrible thing to say, maybe a bit narrow-minded, but they've done really well. But they're all different. Again, why it's hard to pick sort of 5 or so clips is. They've all got different aspects in them. Some of them have been just entertaining without probably too much sort of substance. Some have been real technical. Some of them real like historic. Some of them have been like just ridiculous captures and ridiculous sort of chapters in people's lives where you think, I could never do that. You just sit there and think, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of them, I think, podcasts and people, isn't it? People are so different and you see it in those.
What do you like most in a podcast? As in like, what really like has you on the edge of your seat? What sort of?
I think and it's in the process of planning them, mate. A bit like Elmo's that's coming up. Like you get a layer of a person. If you know them, you cut through that layer and it's a bit more. But getting that to transfer across on camera, you get those juicy bits, don't you? The bits maybe which you wouldn't get if you hadn't developed that rapport with somebody. You get to know exactly what was going on with them, exactly what they felt about stuff, maybe things that weren't part of the main thread. They'd give us sort of a stock answer. I like the, as much as it sounds completely conflictory, but the non-fishing parts. What is going on in your life? What's going on there? What are you thinking? What are you going through?
I guess the things that can't fit into a word count of an article.
Yeah, something like, I don't know, a bit of depth. It could be anything. It could be the fishing. It could be the sort of the technicalities of how you went about things, the ins and outs of that. I do like the technical side of stuff as well, but I think from the person, it's the emotional side of stuff. I look back at some episodes and like Scott talking about his missus, Scott McCulloch talking about his missus going through stuff. She was going through skin cancer at the time and all that sort of stuff. Lloydie talking about his past. There's loads of, I could pull out tons of them where people have really like, they sort of let you into the layer that you probably the public and other people don't see.
Yeah, they just see what's written on the article, the photo at the end of it, and they don't realise, because no one can really explain unless you've got 2 hours to talk about it, what went into a capture or a period of your life or a setup of a company or whatever it might be.
So many mad ones, mate. Like Scott Hatton caught on Windermere. Can you imagine 100 kilos plus a week every week going into a lake that's 300 acres up north, no one knows what's in there, and then on Christmas Day you go and fish it with your lad and you catch 2 20-pounders. What in the world is going on for that to happen? I could never do it. That sort of that depth, I think, is for me in a podcast. If you can get that, that's what I would want to hear. I don't really want to hear the man catches fish lift up story all the time. I like that extra layer, and let's face it, some humour, mate, and madness.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. It's just me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to hear the madness, the crazy sort of chapters. Maybe in the editing process, I've trimmed out quite a few of them because I've had to, but I've listened to them. They've been bloody good.
We should have just done the episode on deleted scenes.
Yeah, the deleted scenes
taken out the industry by Hassan Khan.
Get out of it, mate. No, they've been good, but you know what I mean? At the end of the day, we are coming from a brand perspective, and you have certain things that you've got to make sure are sort of broadcastable, and you have to sort of tailor that. But at the same time, I think we've been, pretty free and open with
this platform. Allows you to do that. You're not going to do it on YouTube. We have to, we're a business at the end of the day. We've got brand guidelines. There's things that could get us in trouble. But as this platform, I think podcast, you can sit back. I'm not sat here thinking, I better not say that.
Yeah. I think there's some things that I've had to take out because they are quite, I don't know, could be quite inflammatory, could be quite, do you know what I mean? Could offend people. And you have to draw the line somewhere. But in terms of everything else, People can name any brands. People can talk about pretty much any subject that they want to talk about. We've had everything, and yeah, mate. There's no sort of limits on it, and I've liked that. That's a bit of freedom. You need that, I think.
No, I fully agree. Like you're not going to get that for other means, and it tells you a little bit more about the person. And I think it makes it more personable. You know, it's just podcast. Like if you're listening to other podcasts, they just where'd you get again? You talk about the James English ones. You don't get that on a normal piece of media. It's just open like. It's been a mad one, really, mate. There's been loads, but that for me, that depth, that sort of extra level of stuff when you sort of see into the person exactly what goes into them is the sort of key. It's been mad. There's been so many, so hard to think. Like, killer.
Yeah. But also like picking out 5 like bits of podcasts, not like 5 highlight podcasts, like certain areas of it. Like, it's just there's a pool of stories there, hours and hours and hours of stories.
But it's like it's hard. All basically I did is think back at it was either the guest, the story, or some sort of context that was just etched in my head. I went that superficially on it in terms of the more you think, the more crop up. You get 20, 30. I've gone from a list of, and you'll see my little jotter book, I've gone from a list of about 20 down to the 5 that I think are, but there's so many out there and so many people like them for different things and different subjects. So yeah, if you haven't watched them, go back, have a look at the catalogue.
Yeah. Let's get into it then.
Number 1, it could only be, couldn't it, mate? You did the intro, Jeremy Wade, mate. Mate.
He's just been sat still like on the laptop here. I can see he's staring at me, obviously, so I knew he was going to be your number 1, but I can't look at that man without thinking, I nearly killed him.
What?
Like
you nearly killed him?
I'll go into detail. Or I thought that I could have killed him. So when he came in for the first time, it was when COVID. No one had caught it yet.
Oh right.
So no one had caught COVID yet, and I'd been to England, Germany in the Euros at Wembley, and I didn't know I'd caught COVID because that was on the whatever day it was, and then not the next day because it was worse for wear, but the day after was when Wadey was in. So I come in, I want to meet James Wade, like this man, River Monsters, like he's a bit of a let's get a photo with him. Anyway, he obviously met him, had the photo with him, arms round him, I'm next to him, almost like head height with him. Next day, COVID test, I've got COVID, and I was the first one especially this office, us boys, the first one I knew of to catch COVID. Back then, it was a few people have caught it, and I was rough. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I'm in trouble here, and I thought I've just shaken Jerry Wade's hand. I'm thinking, I've given him COVID. Like, is he going to come back like the next day? The man survived the plane crash in the Amazon, and I'm going to have taken him out with a little fucking virus. Do you know what I mean? I was thinking, every time I see him, I think, I'm so glad. The good thing was I didn't give him COVID, and I don't think it would have mattered anyway. But at that point, do you know what I mean? Like, he's a bit older than me, His immune system might not be up to scratch. So every time I see him, I'm thinking, I'm just really glad he's alive. Sorry, he's just been staring at me.
You've nailed it as well because you referenced the old plane crash, didn't you? And
is this that clip?
That is the clip that I've chosen. Not the Fishing Chronicles. He's caught loads of money, but that plane crash clip, mate, absolutely ridiculous when he talks about it. Should we ping it up?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
We're flying around, we're filming stuff, and then and it's incredibly noisy because we've got the door off. There's just this rush of wind, and we're trying to have this sort of chain. The director says something, I ask him to say it again, and pass it to the pilot. And anyway, we'd flown around for a little while, and then I heard them shouting like, "More lakes, more lakes! We want to film lakes rather than the river." And so I turned round to my Brazilian friend Lauro, and I'm going, and what lakes are there around here? And he was saying, if just a bit further up here, there's one here off the side of the river. And so I'm then conveying this to the pilot. So I'm saying, we were quite low. I said, look, if we just climb a bit, we'll then get a good view of what's down there. And then as we did that, I just saw this little silver ribbon of water just open up in the forest. And so, okay, there's our lake. So to the pilot, right, what we want to do, we just want to get low and just come in over that. And then as we were approaching, there was this noise. It was a bit like someone opening a beer can, just like that, pop. And then immediately the plane just started rattling. It's just shaking, like someone's picked it up and they're shaking it, and it's like, there's just that moment where
What's going through your head there?
Well, what's interesting is it's just like, it's like that's not good, and then it's like, no, this is a serious problem. The pilot very quietly swore, and then he's actually just doing switches, God knows what he's doing stuff there. And actually, one of my first thoughts was I need to sort of adopt the brace position, but because I'm in the co-pilot seat,
right.
If I do that, I'm spreading myself over all these instruments and switches, and I might affect some vital setting. Therefore, I better just stay where I am. So I think I just clenched my buttocks and just like, there's nothing I can do. The best thing I can do is just sit here. One thing that's I'm not too proud of was that my it did look serious. It's like we're coming down, and we haven't got much altitude. We've got very little time. Since then, I've done some flight training as a result of this, and in general, the higher you are, the better. The more chance you are. We're very low.
The higher you are, the better chance.
Yeah, because you put it into, as long as you're not on fire or something, you put it into a glide, and you can look down, pick a field, or see where the wind is. Take your time. I've even done I've done sort of exercises where, when I was doing flying training, the instructor would sort of lean across and go, right, engine's gone. They just shut the revs right off, and it's like, what are you going to do? And you do it as an exercise. But we had very, about 500 feet or something, so no time at all. So I was just, the thing that happened with me was that my thoughts, it was all about me. It wasn't like, it wasn't everybody else in the plane. It's like, am I going to survive? And my conscious thought was, it wasn't about sort of dying. I just thought, this is going to hurt. This is going to really hurt, And,
is that what it was?
Yeah, it's like, so and I'm just sitting in this seat, looking ahead of me, staring ahead, and we're getting lower, and my peripheral vision, I can just see the trees rising up, and it's like, right, any moment now. And then there was this, and the propeller in front of me, it's a single engine place, the propeller's in front of me, and slowly I'm starting to see the propeller. So, the propeller is basically stopping. We've got no power. And there was then this sound, and it was just like a flick. And what it was just the leaves at the top of a tree just brushing the underside of the plane, just this little flick, couple of seconds flick, couple more seconds flick, and then suddenly just everything goes dark. There's just foliage plastered over the screen in front, and then just it was like a bit like one of those ghost train rides by the seaside, where you're being thrown around and there's G-forces in every direction. It's like someone had just picked up the plane and was just shaking it. And so we're just, that's going on for a few seconds. And then suddenly there's this big crack and this impact. And I realized that we've actually come to a halt. And it's like, bloody hell, we've stopped, and I'm still alive, and it doesn't hurt. And
this is get me a refund.
But then the very first breath that I took, it's like fuel. It's like I just breathed in, and it's like there's fuel. And at the same time, there's all this liquid coming down over my shoulders, and I'm thinking, God, I'm just getting covered in fuel. And so, and just the irony of that struck me then. I've just survived this impact, and we're going to go up in flames. So instantly, right, got to get out of the plane. And I'm trying to undo my harness, and I couldn't do that because I think we'd taken a bit of a side impact. So it's like I'm stuck in this harness. Okay, well, let's just open the door. I've got a door next to me. So I did that. And then while this is happening, it's all these things happening at the same time. While this is happening, this liquid, so it's pouring over my shoulders, but it's gradually coming up my legs, and it's coming up my legs, it gets to my knees, it's coming up my thighs, it's coming up my chest. I'm going, how can there be so much fuel on this plane? I just don't understand it. And then suddenly, I think one of the guys in the back, he's yelling out, "Agua, agua!" We're in water, and like we're in water, but we're going down, and we're in swamp underneath, and it's like shit. I've got to get out this, now. And luckily what happened is that I think the pilot, that's right, he then managed to, I had a knife on me, I was about to cut through the harness, he freed it. I got out, and it turned out that at that point the plane had settled.
Right.
And so we all just... we
bobbed out from the wreckage.
Yeah, and we all sort of regrouped on one of the wings. Yes.
Yeah, that's mad. Obviously, I listened to that podcast, but listening to that story again just puts it all back into your head. And like, I can't remember listening to it now, but that's mad, isn't it?
I mean, there's life experience, isn't there? That's, that was something else when I was hearing it. Because I remember seeing it on the show, like you said, Jungle Hooks it was.
That was it.
I remember watching it and thinking, is this it was a bit of a new series. It was Discovery. Is this a bit of a plug? Like, don't really know. And then everything pretty much firsthand is as he recalled it and whatever, and it really happened to him. But all the stories in that whole podcast of his travels, getting held at gunpoint, there's loads in that podcast of just... madness.
Do you know what's amazing about that story? Just listening to it again now, like, I don't know how many years ago that was that plane crash happened, but like his memory of all the little details of that, what would have been 60 seconds, 2 minutes of them going down. He's got such a good memory. Obviously, it's why he's as big as he is what a storyteller, but like he just knows like all the leaves hitting the bottom of the plane and that sort of thing. He just we were all just sat there in silence then like, what happens next? I know what happens next.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it before.
Yeah.
But you're just so like enthralled by what happened.
It's mad that is life and death, literally, isn't it?
It's when he said, like, it said things you'd never want to hear in life, and that's when the pilot just goes, fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you ever hear a pilot sat in the front and you just hear the pilot, so he says the Portuguese man swore, you just go, fuck. You're like, you just, I'd go into meltdown. He was so, the way he describes it, how calm and
you wouldn't be great in that situation.
I wouldn't be great in that situation. I'd lose my head. I'd scream.
Alf's just taken 5 days off work for a sprained ankle.
Twisted
ankle.
Yeah, I've just retired from football, that's all.
Your sick note list is pretty extensive, mate, over the course of time.
Yeah, that's crazy. And also just to have that sort of story come in, sitting here in a kart fishing podcast and have him... I
was bricking it, mate. I punt it, mate. It's a proper punt, this. So... I'm an open interest ambassador, right?
This is a punt.
Mate, an email list has come through and his email's on the list, in it, and I've gone, GDPR, I don't think we're quite there yet. Let's take this off. So I've ripped his email off, absolutely just tried to articulate myself to say, please come here, do a podcast. You can fish the church, like that. Not asked Nashy, have I? But I thought Nashy would let him go. He's a celebrity. So I've punted this email and I thought, that is just cringe, proper beggy. But he is a legend. Anyway, I think 2 weeks later, I've gone, you are having a laugh here. It's just pinged up in my inbox. He's just gone, I'd be grateful to take you up on your very kind offer. I've gone, very kind offer? You're fishing a lake in Essex and you're having to talk to me for a fair few hours.
For carp, as well. Like,
for carp?
There's no arapaima in there, mate.
Mate. But then he came, mate, and I got to fish like the church with him.
And what a gent as well.
Such a lovely guy.
Yeah.
I've subsequently done some filming with him, mate. He is an absolute boy. Honestly, so, and I don't think it is carp fishing and fishing in general is full of like mavericks in it, individuals that are very sort of like, you see it with Nash, like Owl, the likes of, they are one-offs, isn't they? He's in that ilk. Like, he was like, I didn't even have like a fixed house for a bit, TV, even though he's on TV. He has, all that stuff is not important to him, in the same way that like just an invite to come and fish somewhere, he didn't need like payment, or that's not what it's about. It's just about the purity.
And like, I loved it. When everyone, all the boys in the office go, he's going to turn up in some like big sick 4x4 SUV off-road thing. He's coming in this little Yaris, didn't he?
He had the most old school kit. He had some like Nash bedshare that was like from Happy Hooker days, mate. It was that old.
That's what I mean. Just so down to earth, such a lovely bloke. Like, and I always remember, even at like the Big One show a few years ago, like he's just next level. Like the queue for people to have a photo with him is just honestly next level. And even like, have you seen the views on that podcast?
No,
on the YouTube version?
No.
It's something crazy. Like, usually, obviously, you release a video, you have the big spike of views because it's new, and then it filters out. But like, his got like, what's it on?
290.
Yeah, it had like 100,000 views last year. Like last year, so not the year it got launched.
Yeah.
Like 2 years later, it just had this. So whether like in America or wherever, there was a rerun of his programs and people have found this podcast, and it had this other massive surge, and it just shows like
He is a star, mate. Literally
worldwide.
He did. He went to
international
America, didn't he? 'Cause
Right.
I remember, or his series, whatever the Discovery chat, you know, whatever like sort of arm of the networks and everything. I remember the Americans were going mad for him. I can't remember what his series was. It was some River Monster similar type thing. Some of the listeners will probably know it. I remember seeing it all over Facebook and that when he was promoting it. So yeah, it's like superstar, mate.
Mate, he's an absolute. I
Humble.
couldn't not believe he was there. I was absolutely. To be fair, I think the most. It was quite early on, and I think the most nervous. I knew like context wise and subject wise what he's put out. But just for him to be there, I didn't. Do you know what I mean? You don't. It's not like a carpanger that you've fished a few times with and had a few bevies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's an absolute legend that's just sitting there going with his shoes off. I remember that, shoes off, feet up,
really,
just having a little chill out. I was like, bloody hell, it's Jeremy Wade, boys. So this goes well. But no, that was for me. Like, I mean, there's been so many surreal moments, but like unbelievable. Like, and to get to fish with him and like. On church and have a few pictures with him when he caught it was sick, mate.
Mate, that's incredible. Like the office was full that day he was in.
Yeah,
I remember coming in just to meet him.
Yeah, good times, mate.
Yeah,
so that's up there. Another absolute mate. Same ilk. I said Maverick before. You will not get another man like, and another surreal experience. I had a whole day of this. Was Yatesy.
Yeah, I bet. Again, one of those, like you said a minute ago about the absolute punt. I thought Yates, he's never doing a podcast. No way in a million years he's going to do a podcast. But when you came into the office and said, I've got him, I was like, how have you done that? How have you done that?
A lot of money. No.
Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. You don't know, but that bill's gone. I have to shout out Frosty. He will know who he is. I met him at a charity event I was presenting at. Bite Out of Cancer, and he knew Hugh Miles very well. Hugh Miles, absolute legend, passion for angling cameraman. Martin Bowler's talked very fondly about Hugh. Hugh, in his own right, is an utter celebrity. He is Animal Films, Attenborough. I mean, yeah, he's unbelievable. And I did a podcast with Hugh as well. But Hugh and Yatesy, very good mates, obviously worked on Passion for Angling. I was going down to Hugh's lovely home for some lunch and to do a podcast with Hugh. And he went, I could maybe speak to Chris for you. And I went, Chris? Who is this? Who is this Chris?
Thinking, oh God, he's going to like stitch me out with some boring guy called Chris. Like,
I basically knew that like he was good mates with him. And I didn't want to outwardly ask the question. I'm going to his house, for God's sake. Like, I can't be too beggy about it. So I was like, yeah, Chris. And I did say, I remember cringing and going, Chris who? And just going like that at the phone and looking away and thinking, oh no. And he went, Chris Yatesy. And I went, yeah, could you? I bit his hand off, mate, quicker than you wouldn't believe. He's gone, yeah, could you? So he was like, yeah, that's fine. You come to my house in the morning. We'll do the podcast in the morning. We'll have lunch. My wife will cook us lunch. And then Yatesy will come around, have lunch with us, and you can do the podcast with Chris. And I was like, all in a day, mate. I don't think I can deal with this. Pulled up to his house, beautiful house, lake in his house, unbelievable setting. Hugh, fascinating bloke, like nature imprinting on animals. I remember that, him talking about mountain lions and going up there to get all the photography and camera work with minimal kit and being able to imprint on one of them. That was a fascinating chat, great podcast. And then lunchtime, full spread out, who bowls in? Oh, I've lost my head, haven't I? It's internally I'm combusting.
Yeah.
Going, I've seen you on Passion for Angling. Scarecrow, the old works, do you know what I mean, at Redmire. And we chatted about tennis, of all things, believe it or not, because we love tennis. And then we sat down for a podcast. And even when I was setting up, I found myself looking at cameras and then just looking back and going, bloody hell, it's Chris Yates. That's bloody Chris Yates, boy. And he was all of what you'd expect Yatesy to be. Like, lives on a completely different level to everybody else. Articulate, unbelievably switched on, and just a complete enigma, mate. And I was just, he could have read a bloody Chinese takeaway menu, mate. I'd have stood there with my tongue out going, yeah, see, I love you. And yeah, mate, I think as a podcaster, it was all a blur, and I knew he had to go, but I kept him there as long as I physically could without sort of being completely rude. But I think there are two bits. One bit in there that sticks out, which is not the clip I've chosen, was when he talked about, I think he used a metaphor of dragons for the first time he saw carp, and the language in that is something like flipping poetry. Captivating, because normally your first carp story is pretty, you know what I mean, boring. Unbelievable. And then the bit about Red Mire and the capture of the bishop, which is what we're going to play, is, well, it's not only is it carp fishing history, it's just told in true Yatesy fashion, boy, isn't it? What a boy.
Let's get into it.
There was the three of us, and I didn't say anything about my pre-vision I'd had. But the 16th was the next. We met on the 15th. We were having tea and everything, and I was calm, and I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen the next day.
That confident?
Yeah, I was totally confident, and I just
what, the situation, the swim, the method, everything.
I was fishing in Greenbanks, which was my favourite swim. Always been. So I caught my first red mire carp, and I thought it's going to happen here. And if it doesn't happen here, I'll know from here. I'll be able to
gauge where to go.
Yeah, it'll tell me where to go. Sure enough, it happened, because it was a big thunderstorm in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening, a violent thunderstorm. And I was under an ash tree, which is never a good place to be under. I learned later. Apparently, they're called widowmakers. Yeah. Woodmen call ash trees widowmakers because they have a habit of, a big, brittle, living branch will just break off. And I was camping, my bivvy was right underneath, and there was lightning overhead and lightning hitting the ground. So that was a good sign. Isaac was on my side that day.
Yeah.
That day. And then a wind picked up, a really powerful wind blowing right up to the shallows past me, and that's always a good sign. At Red Mire, if you get a wind blowing to the shallows, you put away all but your best rod, and put on your best shirt, and get ready for something special. And you've got to do it properly. And so many fish went up. You could see him going up. It was a procession going up, and Barry and John were at either end of the deep water down near the dam.
Yeah.
I think Barry was in Pitchfords. That's right. He was sort of maybe halfway up the pool, but I was right up near the top. So I was seeing these fish go by, and then I thought, I'm going to follow them. So I followed them up, and they were all swirling about, kicking up the red mud, and you could see these great sort of furls of mud, like they'd opened like roses, these rose-shaped clouds of red mire mud, and they were head down in it. And I had sweet corn, and I cast say three grains, free line, straight out on a common that was probably 25, 26. God, and it was literally just nosing through. It came up to the corn, and it went right up to it, and the pectorals opened. I think, God. So glad it didn't. Because it just went poof, and it blew it. It blew the corn, and the corn went up, and it came down again, and it looked really hard at it, and no, I don't fancy that. And it went off. And that was so close to not being what I was imagining it was going to be. It went off. Then maybe 20 minutes later, I moved maybe 2 or 3 feet, so closer to the willow that was on my left. And I was looking to see which cast. I was casting. It's like trout fishing. I was casting. I cast 2 or 3 times to other big, one to a 30. Yeah. 30-pounder came right over the bait, slowed, hesitated, looked at the bait, went on. I thought, I'm going to get one in a minute. They're on. They're definitely on. And then I saw this shape coming around the willow from the deep water. It was coming up. It was coming up to join the others. And it was like the reflection of a cloud just going by. And I just reeled in from the 30, so I just went, and I cast very close, too close to the willow. And I thought, you bloody idiot. But as I cast, and this is what I mentioned in the book, there was a little blast of wind, little breeze just blew up. There was plenty of wind blowing the ripples, but I was on the sheltered, on the lee side of the willow. And that bow in the line that the wind caused made me miss all the willows. So the bait landed exactly in front of this carp as it went by. And the line was going down. I could see it hadn't sunk yet, and then it tightened. It picked it up.
On the drop?
On the drop. It took it. I've never had a carp on the drop like that. And it just carried on going. It was like chub fishing. Yeah. It's when you're casting a big black slug, they'll often take it on the drop. And I watched the line tighten. I clicked up for the pickup, so and there was this, and it did a kind of pivot, and the pivot was incredible because you could see the bottom. this swirl, and so you could just see the lake bed. For a split second, I could see the lake bed because the swirl was so violent.
Wow.
It just swept the water in a circle away, and there was this big hollow as it turned, and then it just took off. And it was going round the willow, so I dived in, just jumped straight in and waded out to keep a line on it. And then it ended up maybe 20 minutes later, after it got me stuck in the other side of the willow, and I was shouting for the net because I was too far out by then, and I wanted.
Jumped in without.
And I was going to land. I was going to try and land it right up to my right, where there's an old swan's nest, where there was a bit more open water. I could keep more control on it, and no one stirred. I got a loud whistle. No one stirred. So I was bellowing, and suddenly, what is it? I want a net. I think I've caught a really, really big fish. As I was making then, and then I heard on the far bank, and it was John in his waders, and he was coming along, and he tore himself through some brambles, and I could hear him crunching, and he went over the feeder stream, and he came all the way round to me, and he looked at us, and said, where is it? I said, it's still stuck. It's stuck the other side of the willow, but I'm not pulling it, because if I pull it, I'm pulling it into the willow. It came in from the far side. It needs to go out the far side. Yeah, so I've slacked almost. You could see the line, not really tight, but it was well hooked. I just knew it was secure. You got that feel. Yeah. You know it's quite well hooked until you don't want it to start knocking around in amongst the sunken branches.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was really easy with it. And then suddenly it just went, and there was a bit of a ripple from the willow, and it was Barry. He climbed out into the tree and shaken it. He didn't say anything. Suddenly this head appeared, and he was looking at it, and he said, it's the old 38. And the old 38 is the fish that Barry and I had both seen the previous autumn, and he'd seen it earlier that week. In that week we'd fished together, and he said that he thought it was a big 40, and he was in the willow. No, it wasn't the willow. It was a alder in the willow pitch where the willow used to be. He was up there, and he said, "Come and have a look. Come and have a look. It's that same fish." He said, "What do you reckon?" And we were looking down from the treetop, and I said, "Yeah, it's definitely a big 50, big 40. Sorry, it's definitely a big 40. That's a record. That's definitely a record." And Barry said, "I think that's 50." And that was the autumn before. And then so when he said it's the old 38, what he was saying to me was, that's the 50.
That's the 50, yeah.
Yeah. So of course I nearly went to pieces then. I thought, because it was all over the place. John was wading out with a net.
And you know what you've got on.
I know what I've got on.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I didn't want to know that. But I'd seen it. I saw it before it took the bait. And I knew it was a colossus. And I just kept it coming. I was tightening. The rod was right round then. And the great thing was, this was Dick Walker's Mark IV. It was his rod.
His very rod.
And I broke his record on his rod. Yeah, it wasn't the rod he caught the fish on.
This is like some witchcraft or perfect symmetry stuff going on, isn't it?
It's so weird. And the fact that I told Rod I was going to catch it on the first day. And eventually he got the net. He managed to squeeze the net underneath it. It was in maybe 6 inches of water. He managed to squeeze the net right underneath it and lift it. And as he lifted, there was this violent sort of crash, and the rod shook. And I thought, that's it, it's gone. Because it had gone slack. It had gone slack because he was lifting it up, as much as he could.
God.
And I thought the hook had gone.
Yeah.
And the fish had gone. But it was so much muck and mud everywhere. It was because when the fish flipped, there was mud went all over John. His face, his clothes.
It's just that shallow and it's that big.
What a hero he was. And he just turned around and said, I've got it. I said, just bring it in. He said, you must be joking. He was virtually up to his chest in mud. And he was wearing,
John.
Wearing thigh waders. Yeah. And so I thought, I'm going to have to do it. I snapped the line, and I put the rod, tossed it over the barbed wire fence by the bank, and then I waded out, and I got hold of John, I got hold of the net, and we both heaved it through the silt, and then we heaved it onto the dry bank and over the fence. And by that time, Barry had arrived with a big pan of water, because the fish was covered in mud.
Yeah.
And we washed it down, washed the silt off it, and we both looked at it. We all three rather looked at it, and he brought a sack, and we put it in the sack, and I said, "What do you reckon?" and Barry's got a good, he's got a good sense of stuff, and he kind of just, weighed it in his hand. He said, "That's probably 53 pounds." He said 53 straight away. There was no hesitation.
That's mental as well.
So it was definitely over 50, and it was a lovely looking fish.
that's just another example of someone who is so gifted at telling a story.
Yeah, I was
do
thinking
like
that.
because, and again, I've watched this before, albeit a long time ago. Same as you said with Jeremy Wade, but I just got hooked into that then as well. Like, I really didn't think I'd be as receptive to that, and it is just simply because the story is incredible. Like, it's a piece of history. Would it be that as influential without the man behind it, as how he can express it? Do you know what I mean? Because if I tried to tell that story, do you know, like I can't express myself that well.
What year was that? I don't know off the top of my head, but like for him to know and remember detail by detail, and he like just puts you there. And like you say, he's an absolute wordsmith. What was he saying then? Like about the rose shaped plumes coming up, and then you can really visualize it. Cool. Was it? Colossus. Yeah. But that's it. When I asked you before, like, you know, what do you like in a podcast? Like, for me, I like those stories about man catching big carp. But if they tell it well like that, and he takes you there, and that's what really like lights my fire.
He's a boy, mate. Complete boy.
You can just put yourself there, and you can see him getting all excited about it all over again. And what a catcher, what a guy.
What a guy, man. I paid a lot of money to spend a lot of time with Yates, as I imagine people have over the years. Like, fascinating character. There's no one like him. Keeps a dream diary. Is a ridiculously highly credited nature writer. He's got Night Walk and another book penned in. Like, he's just, mate, I don't think you get him like that. Do you know what I mean? In terms of people, such a unique human being. But to be able to spend a few hours with him, talk carp, talk tennis, be in the presence of him. Yeah, mate. Like,
what was his like? How, just looking at it, there looks like obviously old Starry's house. Was it?
That's Hugh's house.
That's Hugh's house.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you did say that. Yeah. His house is in the old. He did that Adidas advert, didn't he? You see, this is, I keep thinking what I've seen here. Yeah, this Adidas. It's the skateboarding.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that I talked about. That's in the podcast as well, mate. We talk about his like how the hell he managed to go.
Because that was just before this all came up, wasn't it? The podcast came up. Yeah, that's crazy.
Mad. But
it just shows that I mean, think how big their like PR teams are and their researchers to go and find. Right, we're kind of thinking of going down this route for a video or a promo or a collab or whatever. Like, who've you got? And it like someone comes back with goes and finds him. That's not by accident. That's because he is an absolute.
Yeah, he's a one-off, mate. Complete one-off. And as in terms of experiences and days, hopefully one I will never forget. Do you know what I mean? For as long as I live, because it was.
And for him to catch that fish at that time on that method, the way he did, and tell it like that,
and the confidence. Yeah, I knew I was going to catch it. You think?
But that's the thing, because we didn't see it in that clip. But doesn't he say like he just has these like visions where he knows something's going to happen at that time, like watercraft's out the window sort of thing. Is just like. When the clouds do this and the trees do that, then I'll go here and fish it this way, and it's all going to happen. And it does. Like, he's just a
different level on everything he does. Like, even like he records all his dreams and stuff. He writes them down and things because he sees things. He's just like,
I mean,
fascinating.
In a polite sense of the word, he's mental.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, in a polite way.
What a compliment from Alfie. What a compliment from Alfie.
But, well, it is.
He's already been on the podcast, Alf, so you might as well shoot him in now, mate. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's mental in a good way.
No, he's a boy.
Crazy character.
Definitely number 2. And then I've got another clip. This is very different. As I said, the beautiful thing about podcasts, the difference in them, the different guests, the different appeal. It's a very recent one. People may have seen it, may not have seen it. Was going to Holland and meeting up with Pila and Hoffman and KWO. Unbelievable story if you look at it in essence of what they've created with KWO and what they continue to do in terms of content, the Netflix of carp fishing in Europe. But what a pair of characters, mate.
Yeah, so this one's really so for this to make your best bits
mate.
From the last few years, and only a few weeks ago you went and did this. I haven't even had a chance to listen to this one yet, but everyone in the office has said it's hilarious, it's funny, it's completely unique.
It's again, unique's a word that keeps coming up, but it is that, and I think it is the only podcast genuinely for over half of it I'm in absolute stitches.
Yeah.
Like genuine belly laughing. Like the tales, and it is that thing, it's not necessarily the fishing. They've caught loads of big fish, they continue to do that, but it's about everything around it. And I think the mix of those two, you got Mark, who's quite like serious, like quite technical, like a real sort of, do you know what I mean? A keep it real, a carper. And then you've got Pilar, who's like nuts. and the marriage of like that. It's a bit like the in-betweeners meets carp fishing sometimes. You know what I mean? He sort of leads him. It's brilliant. But the clip that I've chosen, iconic story, is the anaconda story. Nothing about carp fishing, but on a carp fishing trip, you'll listen to it. It's an indicator of just how mental nuts, but also how much they love life and love the old journey around their trips, mate. So, we'll get that played.
We were like, okay, I don't want to waste my time here sitting on this lake in the sun. Let's go to Marrakesh. So we went to Marrakesh.
What, as in the markets of Marrakesh? Not a lake there, no?
No, it's the capital city.
Yeah, I know, Marrakesh, yeah.
So went to Marrakesh. It was fun. I also always remember that we were walking. You have a big square there. And I traveled quite a lot, so I know how people try to rip you off. He is like a virgin, like more or less, when he walks there. So
he likes talking to people as well.
Of course. So he sees the guys with a python on his neck and he starts filming. And I was like, don't do it. You have to pay. And I was like, okay, fuck him. So we just walked further. I think you have to pay the guy. You give him money.
€50. €50 to hold, to take a picture?
No, because you were filming him.
Oh, man.
This bullshit. Okay, so long story short, we booked a hotel there. So we were like together. We were like, oh man, it was so exhausting. We had so many fish, blah, blah. We want a good massage. Just go to a spa, chill, love it. So, okay, what do? You ask a taxi driver. Yeah, a good spa.
No, you
Same
don't.
story. So we went outside of Marrakesh, into the mountains again. And then we went into like a neighborhood. It almost looks like Russia, like flat buildings and shit. And we were like, oh man, this is bad. This is the wrong kind of. This is not the spa. We. So okay, we went to do the spa. It was actually quite okay. Yeah. So first in Morocco they do this hammam stuff where they wash you with all the soap, and you know that? It's nice.
Never done
My girlfriend
that,
loves it. Sometimes she does it.
Whatever you get up to with your girlfriend is all right, mate. Washing with soap.
So basically you have to undress. Okay, they wash you and then they rinse you, and it's all like very relaxing. And then it's the massage, but it felt really dodgy. So all the time I was waiting for the girl to ask me to turn around, and then I was afraid that she would try, touch the thing.
Touch the thing.
And I was like, oh my God, no.
So you were face down first?
Yeah, of course, just the massage. But I could feel already that she was not a professional masseuse. Because, it was like,
She a bit handsy, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, you have other expertise. So she was like, turn around. And she started massaging. And then she was like, this is it. And I was like, okay, for goodness sake, it was not something crazy, And then I was like, okay, I was just in my underpants and there was this small curtain and I took the curtain away and I was looking around and I was like, where is he? I didn't see him. So then I saw another cabin next to me with a curtain still there. So I was like, let's have a look around the curtain. And then he was lying there on his back. But the girl, she was not around. So she was probably drinking some water. So I was like, nice. So I went into the cabin. He had a towel on top of his thing as well.
And here. So you had a towel around your nether regions and a towel on your face. Okay.
So, and I have very gentle hands.
Yeah, nice.
So I started massaging his feet, And then I started massaging his, his calves and stuff. And then I went to his legs, and then I went a little bit, inside, there. You know what he said?
What?
Watch out for the anaconda. And he had no freaking clue that it was me.
That's a rent.
Watch out for the anaconda.
What did you do? Did you get out?
I was fucking screaming, man. Of course he knew. It was like, that was nice.
Watch out for the anaconda, man.
That's what comes to his mind, is,
That's incredible, to be fair.
It can bite. I said, watch out for the anaconda. It can bite and spit.
Watch out for the anaconda. It can bite and spit.
Oh, they're the boys, aren't they?
I didn't get a story like that off Yates.
I was going to say, it's a stark contrast.
Well, I don't know if it was the sort of, mate. They've done a lot of travelling, had some experiences, but I don't know if it was. I think it was the marriage of like personalities as well, and how it all works out.
Yeah,
like it's just comedy, and the energy in them is mental. Like Mark's quite chill, but he's still bubbly, but compared to Pete, like, it just works he's so funny.
Yeah, Pilar's mental. Like, it's good to, because obviously the last two I've heard, so it was good to listen to them again as best bits, but I haven't seen that one, so now it's one where I'm like, well, I definitely need to go listen to the whole thing.
There's mad stories on them. There's all sorts of stuff.
Well, I saw some more stories that you'd sent me. Yeah. You'd sent me clips from there to say, Danny boy, like, is this too much? And
I went close to the wire.
Yeah, let's play it safe. Cut that one.
Oh, no way. You're going to have to show me after this.
There's loads of clips where it's just too...
I often think if I'd have kept the do you know what I mean? Uneditable parts, or the parts that haven't made the main edit, they'd be incredible. But as you say, we got to draw the line somewhere. They're a bit close. You're like, on the side of caution, we'll get rid of them. But they were fantastic. But there's enough in there that you ain't really missing the bits that we had chopped out. They're so funny. And they caught some unbelievable. It's not like they haven't caught them.
I was going to say, it's not a couple of comedians there. They are some incredible anglers with some... Did they get into that? Did they get into like the fishing and the captures?
They go into the whole KWO story, how that came to be, how they started fishing, where they met in the Alps. Fascinating story from forums, which was a thing here. Everyone was on forums at one point, through to what they've got now. And all the fishing chapters along the way. They are they're definitely kindred spirits in terms of carp fishing as well. They think the same, they want the same, they are the same sort of vision, but they're just two very contrasting personalities that just together make one absolute cocktail of humour.
They're mental.
And the Dutch.
But I think it's like, I don't know the guys. I really, really don't. Like, I've seen them a few times at shows, and like, you know, they're very good mates with the lads here, so I've been in and around them a couple of times, but they're exactly the same in real life.
Yeah.
That's one of them where they're not like putting it on for the cameras or putting it on for the podcast, because like even in Den Bosch, like a couple of weeks ago, Pila comes bowling through and he's just like mad as a box of frogs. Like, he's just like bowling around and saying shit, and he's just a whirlwind, and you're like, what's he saying? You just see him bowling off onto the stand. He's like, he's mental. He's actually mental.
Definitely be on a bucket list for a European trip. Do you know what I mean? It would be. I mean, fishing wise, it might be a complete write off, but it'd be incredible. Mate.
That's the thing. Like, if you go and you could have a drink down the pub with them and have a really good night out. Like, that's the impression I get from them. Because the same as you, like, I know them through passing, but not through like having a good chat with them. But that's tickled me. That little clip.
Top lads, the podcast full of it. Make sure you get it listened to, mate. It's
Watch out for the anaconda.
He's just so casual. It's a Dutch accent as well. You know, he's just got that bit of a. When they talk like that,
you got some charisma. Those boys have. Yeah, it's terrible. The next one, a bit of a somber note, but in a way not a somber note. Chris Ball obviously passed this year, just gone, but came in to do a podcast with myself. We've been talking about it for a fair bit of time. At no point did he mention any illness or any qualms. The complete contrary, and I think this is one of the, apart from the clip that I'm going to play you, which also has some relevance for me because of where I fish, but in terms of a bloke who clearly had other things going on, had no indication of that, no complaints, and was very much still as obsessed with angling as ever. I can remember him on this very sofa saying, I said to him, we'll sort you out some gear, some tackle for doing it. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for coming down. We'll sort out everything, anything you need. And he just said straight away, I just need floaters. I want to go floater fishing. Like, and you're thinking, I had no idea that, you know what I mean, in a few months' time, he would no longer be here, but he was still planning for this season, getting out, chucking some floaters out and catching some fish off the top, which, I mean, you can't ask for more than that, can you, in terms of somebody who's still got that passion and drive at that point in their life.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you're saying as well, because, like, he's on the cusp of being the generation before, like me and Alf and even the lads who are younger than us now. Without podcasts like this, without stories like this, like, it will just become a distant memory and lost in carp fishing times. You know what I mean? It's like, I think I've said the story before about being at a carp camp and sitting down with all these little lads who are carp fishing, and they've put a lunch on or whatever, and to make a bit of conversation. Right, lads, we'll go around the table. Who's your favourite carp angler? And it's like, Mark Pitchers, Alan Blair, da-da-da-da. And you get around, and it got to one of the lads our age. It's got to be Terry Hearn. And they go, who? There's kids now going, who? So, like, I think it's so nice to have this as not to say there's nothing else out there. There's loads if someone wants to go and find it, but, like, he's gone now.
Yeah.
And so everything that he's told is done. You know, that he will tell no more. So everything that he's ever documented in the past, that's all there is. So I think it's just,
I just love that about him. Like, you can't, I don't know, there's a lot of people who maybe can do it for a short period of time. He loved the history element. He documented it all. He went to London Zoo and saw Clarissa. He had some incredible captures at the time. He photographed so many of the sort of iconic cult carp, do you know what I mean, throughout his time. He'd lived and breathed it, and to his very last day, he was thinking about still going float fishing. And I just thought, that is, if I'm anywhere near that, do you know what I mean, I will be incredibly happy. But that's what fishing's about. You still have it in you. You're still a little kid, ain't you? Do you know what I mean? That's what I loved the most about it. And the story is based on Raisbury of old. I mean, what's the stock? Not many, 20 carp or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Mary's about, they're all about. And him being him, I think he was he working in print or the press? Something like that. And he used to commute to London. And on that commute, he used to stop off at Raisbury, as you would do. Easy, runs water, catch a few, and try and catch them. He loved fishing off the top. And I think maybe he may be the only bloke to have caught 2 carp in Raisbury of old in 2 consecutive casts from Raisbury off the top. And that story that I'm going to play you is all about that.
And ended up, there's 2 fingers, there's a couple of headlands, and there's fingers that come back. And I walked onto one of these headlands, and to the right, there they were. 6, 7 fish. Oh, blimey, look, and right in yourself, ideal conditions. Gave them 2 pouts, and they're at it. My God, the car's a long way.
Yeah, where was the car?
The car was in Douglas Lane.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to run. And anyway, I mean, it's so overgrown. There's so many fish in there, you know, getting stung, stinging nails and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, got back and they, I don't know. It might have been 15 minutes before I got back. You know, with a rod and everything in my hand, and they were still milling about there. I gave them another pouch soda mixer, and thought, right, hang on, let's. And it was quite high off the water. He had a good vantage, and they were probably 20 yards away. So tiny little controller.
So you did have a controller on
it?
It wasn't very low.
Yeah, a little control, little Bonnard controller, because way before commercial, you know, the more popular ones that you see nowadays were available.
Yeah.
It was a little French float. And when I really looked at them, they were all big good ones, but they all looked about the same size. There was nothing, you know, and I waited and watched, you know, especially, you know, if you could see them, you know, the width of them. But no, they all seemed about. They were taking, but you know, several were taking mixers. Now I'm going to have to cast. So I teased it, threw it over the back, teased it back in. Good, I'm in
straight away.
In. And I managed to bundle it, kept it on tight. I'm bundling him away from that. Got him away from that. Very deep margins. Soon I've got him in the margins underneath, up, down. And I've netted it, right? God, blimey. Well, it's got to be £20 that, you know, look at that. You know, a Raisbury carp, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then I do what any experienced floater angler would do, and there weren't many in 1987 experienced floater anglers do. Put my foot on the landing net to hold it still and put more bait out straight away. Right. Anyway, got it out, and I didn't weigh it, but I thought it was £20. Put it in a sack. So we're still taking. You know, I mean, I hadn't managed to spook them with this, you know. They hadn't realised one of the clan were missing. Yeah, were missing, right? And flicked out again. And the very next cast, I can't remember, within 2 or 3 minutes, I'm in again. And again, got it all the way back and looked at that, I thought, blimey, you know, that's, you know, it's about the same size as the other one, I think. Different shape, but about the same size. And that's the moment. So I've got the sack there with a sort of rod resting, very deep water, 6-7 foot right in the edge. And I've got this other one in the landing net thinking, right now, what am I going to do? As a bloke I had seen once or twice, I can't remember your name. If you're watching or listening this, you'll know who you are.
An angler.
An angler, right. Yeah. I'd seen him, and he also occasionally was creeping round as well. I don't think he'd caught anything. I don't know if he ever caught one. But he occasionally I would see him. And suddenly, you know, I heard a noise. I just looked down. I can't even remember his name now, unfortunately. And he came up, and of course I've got a landing net.
Jeez.
There, and he's gone, gee, you caught one. God, blimey, how about that? God, and all the times I'm thinking, gee, I'm going to have to tell him I've got another one in the sack here as well. And he was doing somersaults, this bloke. And great lad that he did. He took a whole set of pictures for me.
Yeah.
Which were brilliant. And those two fish turned into whoppers because they were stocked fish in only the year before. And they were the first captures of these two fish, which were Mullins and Cluster.
I think I say it there, mate. It's hairs on the back of my neck even now. I look out on exactly where he caught those carp from when I go and fish Rosebery, and I think back to the story that he told there and those two fish, knowing their significance probably when I was reading about carp fishing in maybe more modern fishery, the likes of Jim Shelley and the likes that have caught those carp, and for him to be the first person to catch them, where I can look and go and see where he caught them from and hear about the actual way in which he caught them back in the day. Mate, mad.
Yeah, what did he say there? 87. That was 2 years before I was born. Like,
I was 2. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just like think back about how long ago that was and how like fresh that is in his mind. Yeah, we talked about the, you know, the last couple of guys and how good the storytelling, but like quite early on in that clip, you just hear his voice and his little pauses and like, I don't know. It's like a voice for, it is a voice for radio, a voice for storytelling. It's just, there's a raspiness to it. And yeah, I just think it's wicked stories. And
fair play to the bloke taking the photos as well. When he first mentioned that, I thought he was going to say, a bloke come in and say, oh, you caught one? And he's like, no, like, and he said he was doing, can you imagine someone walking into your swim set and you've got two in the nets and then being that buzzing. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit cynical and a bit that, like, because
you're all modern new age, mate. Yeah, there was etiquette back then.
This is what I mean. It would just be nice that every bloke who walks in your swim go, yes, go on, my son, you know, like, let's get some photos.
Just to walk up there, like the actual logistics. I think he says it as well in the podcast. The podcast's brilliant. There's loads of history in it. There's loads of different venues and everything from Carissa to British Records to the documentation of his own carp fishing, everything else. But I think he does say he used to go there and do a full lap of Rosebery. Now, even now, when there's gates and paths and swims, to do a full lap of the North and South Lake would be a fair old lick. Back then, he was like, took 6-7 hours. Yeah. So for somebody to be behind you in a swim when you've caught two, I mean, that's turn up for the books, let alone trying to go and get somebody and have to hack through all that.
Yeah.
But just incredible times. Again, for me, a personal venue that sort of resonates, but the captures and the bloke, to spend some time with him, do you know what I mean, was brilliant. And obviously, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But I think
sometimes the sort of, you can't pick when and whatever you go, but the way in which you go, the fact that he was so sort of still on it, and he had that depth of experience. Yeah, it was mega, mate. I was really privileged to, I think, spend some time with him.
Like you said at the beginning as well, having that to look back on almost like for his family. Do you know what I mean? Like you can just say, let's go look at Chris, and he said, look at him, he's buzzing telling that story. Do you know what I mean? He's enjoyed telling that. So yeah, it's a nice little catalogue, little library.
It's nice. Unfortunately and weirdly, it's one of them like where at the time he's telling you a story and you probably take it for granted a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately now he's passed and we've listened to that story again, and it almost like you appreciate it so much more, because that is obviously like a moment in that man's life which was quite, well, it would have been a highlight for him. You know, it's quite high up there. It's quite a big achievement, especially in someone who's that passionate about fishing. And I think you just kind of appreciate it a little bit more almost now. He's passionate. You just kind of think like, I don't know, everyone's individual. Everyone's got those moments in their life. And you share stories with your mates on the bank. And you only ever really think about yourself, don't you? And those stories mean that much to you, and they'll never mean that much to anyone else around you. But like, it's nice to be able to look at that back on that now and reflect and really put yourself in his shoes and just be like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a
mega
cool moment, like
proper cool. Another bloke, again, very, very unique. The old Shelley maestro.
Yeah,
honestly, an incredible bloke. He won't remember this, and I don't think I've even told him this to this very day. But I was fishing a water in Leicestershire, and I won't name the water. He did do some vlogs on there, though, at a certain point when he was doing them back in the day. And the first time I ever met him, I was a young, impressionable 16-year-old boy.
Really? Wow.
He doesn't know this. I haven't told him this, and we speak a lot. And I was fishing this water, and he was on the water. I hadn't put any vlogs out at this point. And there was some really nice carp, especially for Leicestershire. There ain't a lot of big carp in Leicestershire. And there was a head of really nice carp. Anyway, I've gone down this part of this particular water, a relatively big water, and they are nutting out like some sort of dolphin show. And I've seen one of, I think it might have been the last one he caught from there, one of the A-team nut out. I'm 16, I've got a little carp port barrow I'm going round, mate. I'm like, oh God, I'm on. No one there. I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm on him. I'm going to catch him. So I've got me myself not set up. I've got myself pushed into a swim. Right, I'm in the swim. I've had a look. One's nutted out again. I'm right in the middle of them. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to fill my boots here. Ready to get set up. Who trots down the bank? Big Jim Shelley.
And you, at your age, you knew his.
I knew he's Jim Shelley.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh my God, it's Jim Shelley. And that's the first time I ever met him. And I hadn't seen him, not at a show, not on the bank, not anywhere, since I would have been 15, 16, yeah. And I'd met him for that podcast. He came down here to do it, and I was like, he won't know who I am, so we're all square and we're all cool. But I was like, is he the same sort of character? Because when he's on it, he's on it. Like I thought, is he going to be like that in person? I didn't really know. He'd done some sip stuff with Elliot. It was a bit sort of like a bit more sort of informal and looked quite relaxed. And it was a bit like, what was he like? Do you know what I mean? And meeting him, honestly, mate, straight away he takes a mickey. Like, it was such a laugh. There was like, he's another one of those like unique characters. He's Jim, isn't he? He talks about cutting you up all the time and stuff. He loves a bit of knife stuff and whatever. Yeah. But as a bloke, boy, mate, he's caught he's caught everything everywhere.
He's a joke. It's actually a joke.
Unbelievable, mate. And he does things like so like uniquely. Do you know what I mean? Like, there ain't no following of any path. There ain't no whatever. And he is just straight down the line with everything. Do you know what I mean? Which I love. And I loved, like, even chatting with him off camera. He's just straight to it. Good banter, like, straight on it. Obviously, if you've fished against him or with him in the past, he's a ruthless carp catching machine. He is what he is. But I think, like, all that, I was very, like, as soon as I chatted to him on a level, I was very like, oh, he's an absolute boy. Do you know what I mean?
Imagine being a fly on the wall for like him and Henry's trips away. Like, him and Henry went on a social to France together when they didn't know each other really like at all. And Henry was like, let's go fishing together. And they did.
That's rogue.
Yeah, you know,
that's weird, isn't it?
You got Pila and Hoffman, they gel, you know, and then you've got Henry and Jim Shelley. You wouldn't have put them together.
Looking back on it, I'm just like, how did that come about? And why did it go through with actually happening?
I do remember the Instagram stories of him calling him like his tea woman or something, wasn't he? What was he calling Henry? Henry was getting wound up. I saw it.
Yeah.
You know, when he goes pure rugby. And you
very, very strange dynamic, them two. But they're great buds. They're talking all the time.
He's a boy, mate, Jim. I talk to him a lot. He's an absolute, like, he's found his thing. He's happy. He's doing, and more power to him. But the clip and it is an iconic, I don't know, everybody says it, the one they'd want to catch, if you like. But the clip that I'm going to share was his Black Mirror story, because, like, it's a bit of Jim. It is one of those sort of standout,
almost at his pinnacle, where like he was before he'd gone out. And I knew he had a little stint in Cassian and that, but like before he's rediscovered Europe, if you like, and he was like so engrossed in that UK big cup scene, just ticking him off, and it's right in the midst of that, innit? This story.
What a carp! What a time! What a place!
Let's have a listen.
Get back to the bivvy, right? And just as I go past the bivvy, I just goes, scream like that. It's the ultimate scream and stop I've ever had in my life. Just bivvy. That's it. Nothing else. No movement. Nothing. I thought, what the hell? So anyway, I picked the rod up, and like I've always used Nash, but I've always used Nash pursuits, and I picked the rod up and I've loaded it. And it's like starting to bend like proper. I'm now don't really want to be exerting this much, but it's obviously something's happened.
Yeah.
And then like that. That was it. Put the rod down, put it on the rest, set the clutch, got the boat, took the battery up to the boat, put the life jacket on, come down, put the net in the boat, went out. Right. I didn't actually know that there was a weed bed to the left. And what had happened, he'd somehow manipulated on the take and got in there.
Yeah.
So when I got above it, it's like any weedy, not snag, but weed. It is a snag. You get above it and it just pops up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an algae bloom, innit? But it's blown a northerly, and I'm behind the northerly, so it's going down the other end.
Yeah.
So it's you've got clarity of maybe, let's say, if you saw something 6 or 7 foot down, you could see it. You know what I'm going to say to you here, don't you? So I get over it, and all of a sudden it rises. Up comes a lead core, 8 foot lead core, something like that. Black Mirror. Oh no. And then all it does is like took off on the surface, flat rodded me to the snags. It's going to the snags. So that's only like 20, 25 yards away. I've got the boat. I put the boat into full reverse and held on, so it can't pull me, because if hadn't done that, it'd have taken me in there. Chances are I'd have lost it. So I exerted more pressure than I'd really want to do in that situation with such an iconic fish. And then it just come away. And then it just charged down the lake. And anyway, this high profile angler had just been round, and he turned round and he said, "Oh, I'm on him over there." And I turned around and went, "It's all show and no go over there, son." So anyway, he's gone back. Then it's Jim running around the lake. I'm just battling this fish out in the pond. I know it's a black mirror. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again. I won't do this. I won't do that. Please, I pray. It's the ultimate flipping prize in carp fishing.
It's the end of a saga, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, please. And this thing is fighting like you do not want to know. Charges, I could not calm it. One minute you'd have it there, the next minute it'd just go on a mental run. I probably ended up out in the pond, 100 yards out in the lake, and the battle was 18 to 22 minutes, maybe. I don't know. It was just a long time. I know I just kept looking up and saying, Marky, please, let me catch this one. It's for you.
Is that what you were saying?
And it was like, when it come up, you're on a 3-inch hook link. I got a size 6 hook because
What hooks were you on here?
No, I'm not saying that on here. I don't want to get cauterised, do I? And I didn't catch it on a corner hook.
I didn't either. I had to do that. But anyway, you imagine, like, you know, the eye contact I had when I saw it in the boat. I've got that fish looking at me now. And it done one final, like, go. But it flat rodded me, probably 30 yards. And that was the end. I went to it, and I can't make it sound any easier than what I'd been through. It's in the net. I look up, I cry. I've never cried over a fish in my life. I don't know. Can't even explain it.
Mate, he's an intense man, isn't he?
Ridiculous, mate, isn't it? He's full go.
And I think you get, like, I've said it loads, like, there's not many, there's people who love fishing, like, really, really head over heels love fishing. It's their everything, but, like, there's a handful like that. There's a handful where, like, you can see that there's a moment there where he sits and he looks like that. I can see it looking at me. And you can tell he is reliving every second of it. But, like, he tells it in such an intense way, like it's the first time. What's, like you said before we listened to that clip, it's probably the answer you got the most off saying to people, what's the best fish you wish you could have caught? Black Mirror. But, like, there's not many stories told like that of the capture. And you really put yourself there. And, like, what did he just say that really cracked Alf up?
What did he say? He said a number of things.
He goes, it was probably 18 to 22
How
minutes.
specific
Like,
it was. You know. There is a lot of detail. That is a common thing, though, isn't it? That sort of storytelling and the detail in it does really put you there. I'm trying to think of another good story of the Black Mirror would be Jason Hayward, another great episode, but again, another great story of it. But I think I don't know if it's just the persona of Jim and the sort of intense is a great word for it. It really I just thought, whoa, that not only is that an epic carp, but it's an epic time, and he caught a fair few in and around that area that he wanted to tick off, and that was the accumulation. But he is also great for a quote, mate. Like, he came up with back widings for pussies, which is in the same podcast. Like, there's loads of little bits in there which are like Jimisms.
I love how he was so careful around swearing. And then when he gets to the bit, well, what did you say? It's a black fucking, you know, and because he's just almost in the moment again, because he was actually like, but it's the flip it instead of, you know, swearing. And then, so like you can tell he was back in the moment then.
That's what makes such a good podcast for me. It's like I said earlier, it's for me, I love the stories about a capture when they say it like that, describe it like that, and you can put yourself there and you know they're reliving every second of it. That is the ultimate buzz for me. Like, it's just wicked.
There's loads of, like, I'd think now, like, there's that Pennin, there's Oz, there's Gaz, there's loads of others that have been on that are just like, they're all great storytellers. They've got incredible carp to like talk about. There's so many of those type of, do you know what I mean? And it's not an easy thing to do. Like, you try and talk about it and it's just absolutely flat. But those boys, they can paint a mega picture with words. But yeah, Jim and that capture, ridiculous. I remember that podcast, and he's done subsequent podcasts as well, like about various different aspects European angling. He's an institution, mate. He's a very good friend, and he is just Jim, and I love that about him. I'm going to give you a bonus one because I did say 5, but I've got a 6th, and the 6th, the reason I've picked it is because we sort of over the course of time looked at different formats. We came up with a debate, the old debate podcast. You've all been in various guises of them with subjects. And I think I said it before, sometimes you have quite a sort of a professional level that you operate at. And I remember going into this podcast with Alan and Ollie, and everyone was a bit tired. I think Alan had been working like he normally does. Ollie had been angling. I don't know if he'd been out with Sip or somebody, but it was a bit like, yeah, we want a debate, but we don't really feel like a debate. We just feel like chilling out and talking. And it was all a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if this one's going to really, do you know what I mean? Do what the debate should do, which is spark a bit of controversy, get some opinions flowing and whatever. Shout out Ollie, he's been in every episode because he loves to sort of, grate on people sometimes and really express an opinion. So we were in, and I think the whole podcast was good. There's various opinions, but it was very sort of, it was quite harmonious. It was quite like, yeah, everyone was pretty much swimming from the same hymn sheet. There was a few discrepancies. And then out of left field, not a planned question. I think the original question I asked was beaked point or straight point hooked. And it went into a leads debate. And for the first time, I think in quite a while, I saw those two forget the mics. It could have been like they were on the bank or they were together in the meeting room or whatever, like really sort of, going at a raw sort of chat around what they thought from their fishing. And I think, like, I remember sitting back and trying to, like, just notch in every now and again, but just let them run with it. It was like watching what I'd imagine it would be like when they rock up to some venue on Eurobanks and they're not sure what to do.
Having a little bicker between each other. I've not seen this, so it'd be interesting to watch it.
It's an interesting chat, so check it out.
Ollie likes keeping his lead on, but he uses very, very small leads in comparison to me. I want my lead off, but I don't want my lead off quickly. I want my lead to stay on until I've picked the rod up. Yeah. Now, if I'm sleeping and that's 10 seconds...
But why do you want the lead off?
Why do I want it on? It just makes it does make it harder to bring them in. Fact.
What, like you use quite big leads as well, though, don't you?
Ollie loves a little
one. I will use big lead.
Listen,
my lead size is dependent on whether I want to lose it or not. And if I want to, my setup...
I was going to say, you're not keeping us 8 ounces on.
No, if I want that lead to come off, I will use a 4 or 5 ounce lead because that drop off inline setup, that's what will happen. But if I just use a 2 ounce lead, 90% of the time that lead will come back in with the fish, unless the caveat is it hits some weed or something that knocks it off, which is exactly how it should function. I don't fish a drop off lead setup to drop the lead. I do it because it will drop the lead if the fish comes into contact with something. For me, that's fish safety, but also being responsible to a degree, because I don't just want to drop that bit of lump of lead unnecessarily into the environment. If I genuinely believe that I can't land that fish without losing it, then I will. But let's face it, 99% of the situation, that's not the case, is it? It's fashion over function. We're told that we have to lose, which is why I asked you.
Yeah, but again, and this is what I mean. I'll be honest, man. Yeah, I'm not vegan. I catch carp, put a book in them, and I drop the lead.
Yeah,
and I don't have a lot of remorse for that. But I know it's wrong, and I make you right. And if there's a situation where I think I can catch as many fish and as effectively as I can by keeping a lead on there or using a lighter lead instead of a heavy lead and therefore being able to keep it on, I'll happily play a fishing with 2 or 3 ounces of lead on. That's joy, man.
But you hear
I want 6 ounces. Do you know what I mean? I want 8 ounces.
Why though?
Because I think it 100% will penetrate the hook.
But then why do I catch on a 1 ounce lead?
But this is where you can start episode 2 of this debate, because we will debate now, because we're very similar but very different.
No, but I asked someone the other day that. He said, I always use a 4 ounce lead to jam that. I said, but then the rest of us that use 2 ounce leads would never catch anything. Why do you need a 4 ounce? Because in his head, there was no scientific proof, and it's in your head, mate.
Yeah, but it's not, because this goes back to the thing. You can't prove it either.
Yeah.
You can't prove it,
but if you watch them enough, if you watch them enough, most of them are hooked before the lead comes into play. We can talk about a certain product which is supposed to self-hook, and that product, they're already hooked before that is engaged. You don't need that extra weight or penetration. You don't.
I totally disagree. I want whether they're pricked or not. You've said it yourself. You want the lead there to kind of keep it in. So as they're moving off with 8 ounces, whether they're just moving off and it's dragging, or whether they're now shaking the lead from side to side, and there's 8 ounces.
But why do you need 8 ounces and not 6?
Well, I'd use 10.
I think you. I would use 10 ounces if I needed 10 ounces to hold the rig in position.
Yeah, but that's where we can debate this
and that's the only reason I would use 10 ounces.
But what you can't.
But listen, would you use 10 ounces if you could get away with 8? Of course you would. Why would you use 10?
I would use 10. I'd use more.
Why?
Because
that makes no sense.
The more that's there.
No, but if 8 ounces hooked them as well as 10 ounces.
But that's the bit you can't prove.
No, but what you also can't disprove is that if you've got more lead, that the amount of penetration that hook is going to be greater because you've got more resistance, haven't you? That's what Al's saying. The bigger that lead, if you put a house brick on, that hook is going to go in further than if you put half a house brick on.
And do you know the only reason I like?
Yeah.
I go back the other way.
science,
You must be using blunt hooks, bruv.
No, but that's science, isn't it?
In my head, and that, do you know that's something? Another
Is it?
thing.
Because you're not now doing it scientifically.
Well,
you're
you're
just
because
making. No, you're not.
If I
There's
set
no
up a fish tank.
You haven't.
Look, if I set up a fish tank, and we take exactly the same rigs, and we put one rig in there, and I put my hand in the water with my finger, and it's got 2 ounces of lead, and I go to the point, and I lift it up. Yeah, it puts an amount of pressure on the point into my finger. If I change that 2 ounce lead for 12 ounces, it puts more pressure onto my finger. I hope at that point it's actually pulled into my finger now and I'm hooked. But I think I could lift a 2 ounce lead up and it not pull into my flesh. Whereas I don't.
So how do I hook any cop?
So okay,
so how do you hook any cop?
That's why how do
you hook them on a choddy?
But that's why I've always
on a
said
free running choddy.
But that's why I've always said
no. But honestly, how does the choddy work then?
But if you said,
I think it's incredibly ineffective.
If you said
ridiculously ineffective, and that's why when Mark Hoffman first started, when he got on it, and I was watching him, and he was trapping it between the fingers. That's the better way to fish it, like to trap it. But the problem, I like it.
But how does long free running chods work at all then?
Let's take.
And I've been very vocal about this. I think if whereas with let's say with a 6 ounce inline and a short hook link. Let's say, for argument's sake, it's 1 in 2. Yeah, every other time it gets nailed, guaranteed. With a choddy, it's 1 in 10. 10 times he's got.
Is it though?
I don't
You're
know.
making
it's all
it
speculating.
Yeah.
It's all speculating. But
you
what
can't.
Isn't speculating is this, and this is what I was going to say to you. So one of the other things I've really started to come to terms with in my fishing lately is what is actually fact. I did a slideshow in Belgium at the weekend about it. What is actually fact? Not me sitting here speculating that a sliding choddy's not as good. What is actually fact? And what I think is fact. I've never done this test. We'll do it afterwards. But if I put 2 ounces of lead and try and lift it against 12 ounces, that's factual. You'd agree that, wouldn't you?
I think
you'd agree that it's more likely to pull into my finger.
If you took that, what Al's saying, if you took that, but you said there, you hook them on a 2 ounce lead. So let's say that's your constant 2 ounce lead. If you then substituted your 2 ounce lead, and you said before they're hooked, before they come in contact with the lead, if you got rid of the lead by your rationale and you had no lead and you just had your hook length and you whacked it out there, by what you're saying, they'd still be hooked. I don't think they're going to be as hooked as well without any lead in there as they are going to be hooked.
I'm not saying no lead. There has to be a resistance which turns the hook. But why would you use 8 ounces if 4 ounces works just as well? This is what I'm trying to say. Al's going, I'd still use 10, even though 8.
You're right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. I change that. If I knew. But then the problem is it's the speed at which they move off, to therefore how much of a whack that creates. It's loads of other factors. All I know is that I really want it past the barb. I want it past the barb before they're going anywhere.
But how do you know that that it's not past the barb?
Well, you don't. You don't. But
it obviously is the same. It obviously works the same because otherwise,
I want resistance.
I watched one hook itself on a zig yesterday under my feet. I watched it. Now, conventional wisdom would say that you need a heavy lead, yeah? For zig fishing?
It can't have hindered it, though. It can't have made it any worse.
I watched it hook itself on 1.5 ounces lead.
Yeah, you got lucky, Al.
Did I?
Well, yeah, because... And this is the problem.
It was just as well hooked as if it had been with a 4 ounce lead.
What was the lead on? Silt? Was it plugged in at all? Was there any additional
No, it was just laid on the top, under my feet. On the gravel shelf in the margin.
But you also know, Al, because
I'm just saying. So,
you also know that fish could have tried to take it 4 times and not got hooked. Geez, you sight fished enough to have been rejected or spat out. Or
but that's been not to do with the lead.
But you don't know that.
Well, it has. When you can watch. I have. I fished 10 ounces when I have to. But like at Rainbow, here's a prime example. I've landed like my 2 biggest fish with the 4 ounce lead still attached from the bank. Now I could have fished 10 ounces and I could have lost the lead and I could have gone in the boat, but I didn't need to. The point I'm saying is I don't really like waste. I'm not a big fan of waste, and I see a lot of what we do as being wasteful by not even thinking about it. It's that like the lead thing. If you're using twice the resources that you need to unnecessarily, then why? Like, do you know what I mean? So if you're using 4 ounces when 2 is perfectly as good, Why? Why are you doing that? And that, a lot of anglers don't ask themselves the question. No, there's no fact involved, Dale. There ain't, because you can't prove it.
Yeah, there is fact in there. There is scientific rules, even in water, that the lead might not weigh 2 ounces in water, but it's going to weigh more, isn't it? It's going to weigh more, so that resistance when they pick up the rig is going to be greater. Now, the point at which it needs to have
that's
resistance,
where I agree with you. Maybe there's an excess to it.
We don't know. But
but you've just built in an excess. I know you sort of retracted it, but you say, no, I'd still use 10, even if 8 would do.
No, sorry, I don't mean that. No.
But some people will. No, I use 10, and that's that.
I'm looking for facts now more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely, and I am too. Which is why when people say these things to me, I need a 4 ounce lead to drive the hook home, and I say, no, you don't need a 4 ounce lead to drive the hook home, because I've watched it many times. No 4 ounce lead. Do you know what I mean? So I think we create these rules in our heads, and they're not important. Like that's not the reason. I think
it's one of those. I would rather put more on and drop it and not run the risk of coming down to see what I could get away with. Well, the risk is that I don't get a hookup at all. Do you know what I mean? The lead, basically, the fish either uses it or there's not enough weight to drive it in.
Until you watch that happen.
Yeah, mate. But
I can tell you, as someone who's watched from both, I've watched heavy leads and I've watched light leads. It makes no difference. The lead isn't the factor in the hook in, and I don't think it's a factor whether they fall off or not either, because I don't think you or I could say one way or the other until you present like, well, I lost, because it's all so subjective.
Yeah.
But I think all I'm trying to say is we need to think a little bit deeper than the conventional wisdom than saying you need to use a heavy lead to prick them, because you don't, you know, and that's just one example of us not necessarily seeing what's going on and making up something, and then it's gospel. So I always have to use 4 ounce leads now. I always have to use 8 ounce leads. You fish rainbow and you fish at 100 yards, you always have to use a 10 ounce lead and a bottle. No, you don't. You know, every situation is different, isn't it? But listen, this comes from a point of me not liking waste. If I don't have to drop that lead, I don't want to drop that lead. If I don't need to use a kilo of bait, if I only need a handful, I'm only using a handful. Do you know what I mean? Whereas some people will default, I'm going to put a kilo in. Do you know what I mean? Probably we need to put more bait in because it sells more bait. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's how you're different, isn't it, I suppose? That's how you're different. That's how you...
It's being responsible.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's trying to minimise your...
You can't play that card. We've just had the conversation about sacking them and catching them.
Yeah, I know. But like...
One thing that I've learned from watching that debate around hooking is that to get the biggest nibble, you just need to chuck a question out like that, because oh wow, did they go to town on it?
That's fiery, isn't it?
I didn't know this happened.
Fiery.
That went off. That's good. That's what's so good about that debate podcast. Because also just watching it then, I want to get involved. I'm like, come, what? No,
yeah, exactly.
And you want to put your opinion across. And I remember listening to that first one they did, and like sitting there driving, listening to it, and going like, nah, disagreeing. And I thought it was wicked, but that.
Yeah, that's tasty, isn't it?
That's tasty.
I remember being here trying to sort of like, obviously you got an opinion. My opinion was similar to ours in terms of like heavier leads, but trying not to be too sort of, I was trying to mediate the middle of it, because it did get quite like, I was like, oh, this could go.
There's a couple of times where I almost expected them to go, no, shut up a minute. I'm trying to like,
yeah, no, but the beauty of the format, there's a fair few, I think there's about 6 of them in total.
They
cover everything. There's some there's Henry sort of talking about retaining carp and all sorts of craziness, as well as his love life, which is mega, all the way through to sort of more heated and edited chapters like that one. So yeah mate,
that's crazy.
They were good to do, mate. I really enjoyed them because they could go anywhere.
Yeah, and like, you know, there's loads of people telling, you know, the classic story. I was saying, I like a carp story, but like you've had loads of them. That's something that keeps you on your edge of your seat and keeps you on your toes. That's like, that got proper heated. You can tell they're both like, and it wouldn't work if they didn't know each other, because you always got your
guard up, haven't you?
Guard up, because they're mates. They will literally go at each other. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. Like,
it's one of those like when you're. I think in that format, when you're here trying to tag it together, no two ways about it. At the start of normal podcasts, when I started doing them, I was absolutely I was absolutely shocking. But you sort of you get into a cadence with them, and they're brilliant, and you love hearing about it. But it's quite easy especially if they're good storytellers, to facilitate that. When you get those, you're always conscious of I don't really know what could happen, and sometimes they sort of maybe don't live up to the hype. Whereas you get something like that, which is not, I don't think the question was anything about leads. I'm pretty sure it was about hook points, and it just went off.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's keep rolling, boys. Yeah, keep going.
Also, that highlights the glory of fishing, because almost their own argument against them was neither of them know. None of us really know. Yeah, you've watched them in the edge a lot, but none of us really know what happens on the inside of a carp's mouth at that point.
You ain't got a clue.
You just got to do what you're confident in at the end of the day, I think. I'm just trying to get involved in this debate now, but
Big lad, man. Big lad, get it off, job done.
I'm not getting into it.
That's me, mate. I can't. Yeah, that's me. But that's my 6 clips, mate, for you. I've kept it at 6. They're the ones that sort of stick at me, but there are tons, and every single guest, I can't thank them enough, because every single one in its own right has an element or something in it that is infinitely listenable, knowledgeable, entertaining, various other things. It's been mad.
Yeah, as I say, all of those clips are very different characters, different people, but it's all great because it's all based around this weird sport of fishing. But there's a huge catalogue there. It's nice to have a little look back on them.
Yeah, mate, mad.
But why? But why are we having a look back on them, people?
Well, I think you boys know the reason why. I don't think publicly people know the reason why.
No.
But this may be my penultimate podcast, boys, depending on when this goes out, or my last podcast.
Yeah. It's the end of an era.
The 100 whatever episode, the long old series 2 that we was we don't really have a series 3, so we'll just do series 2. But it is coming to an end, which I'm sad to say.
You're leaving us, mate.
I think a lot of people will be relieved at that. I remember coming into the podcast with you two boys. It's quite a nice symmetry, I feel, and you storming out slightly staged, but that was good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I could just storm out now. No, but I am, off to pastures new, boys. After 3 and a bit years of doing this, which
who is it? We'll have them.
I'm at Capital Carp competitions and the old group there. We're basically producing content, so you will still be punished by this voice, not in podcast form. I'll be hopefully with some rods out somewhere and various other bits, but yeah, opportunity wise, I think it's one of those, and I also think I have done it for 3 years. I had plans to do a lot more. We went to Holland in the last few episodes, so there was a lot of scope to sort of. But sometimes an opportunity comes along, and I don't know. I'd feel like I'm always one of those. I don't want to regret stuff, and it's a good opportunity. So we shall see. If not, you'll hear me back here. And no, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things. But I think as a series of podcasts, 175. It doesn't feel like that many, but it is a lot, and I think.
Well, I think there's a few achievements in there as well. 3.5 years, long time. As I did touch on earlier, to never miss a week of putting them out and having a consistent podcast go out within a very niche industry. I think you've done an absolutely amazing job for us. Thank you for that. It's been much appreciated. But I don't think you've just come in and done a job. I think you've smashed it. I think there isn't anyone, I'm going to sit here and brown nose you now. I don't think there's anyone in the industry who can be that good of an interviewer with anyone from any walk of life and sit here and make someone feel comfortable and sit and talk for that amount of time like you've known them for 10 years. And as we've seen today, get the content out of them and the stories and the different angles and everything that you have. I think you've done an amazing job for us, mate. So we'll be forever in your debt.
Yeah, and it's almost been reinforced through this, what we've just done there, looking back, sitting back, and there's a few like S-listers above the A tier. Do you know what I mean? Like you Jeremy Wade, and I don't think many people would have had the confidence, to the people skills to manage to do it. Do you know what I mean? To have the confidence to do that is a very niche
skill set.
It's
mate.
good editing, Alf, is what it is.
No, being able to get that like clientele one, I think you set the bar very, very high. And I mean, we are gonna disappear for a bit. We don't really know, do we, exactly the direction it's going to go in at the moment. But I think I don't think, like you say, one a week for that length of time and to have that consistency and quality. No one's going to come close, mate.
I remember speaking to Bowler about it because Bowler, I was like, one a week is quite difficult in practice because, as I said before, like you're at the mercy of people. And I think he put it into context. He's done his Angling Times article and his pictures for 20 years every single week, and I was like, oh, shut up then. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. 20 years is a feral trick, but like it doesn't feel like that when you're in it and you're doing it. As I said, and I said that before, and I cannot reiterate enough, a massive thanks to everyone here. I didn't know how to edit I must have been an absolute punisher, mate, those early days, because I didn't know how to edit, didn't know how to use Premiere Pro or do anything. So the first few edits, I remember phone calls to Dan at silly o'clock going, look, mate, I've lost this, I've done that, I've whatevered, and it must have been a pain in the arse. But eventually, like, that was an upskill for me, learning to sort of edit them. And then the fact that every guest, and I'd say, mate, it's over 90% of them that I've asked have been so forthcoming in coming on. You guys have been so forthcoming in supporting that if there's ever been anything, do you know what I mean? Like a week here or I needed that there or whatever. Yeah, mate, it's just been, it couldn't have gone, in doing it, it couldn't have gone any smoother throughout the course of the thing. There's been a lot of hard work from a lot of parties, people that aren't here. Richie P for doing graphics, some of the lads here for doing the trailers in the early days as well, like all of that to support it. It's been mega, and it's been everything that Nash expects to be, a family, like everybody getting on, loads of banter, and it ain't been arduous, even though it's a 4.5 hour drive from my house to come and do them. It ain't been that. And I think if I take it now at 170, whatever it is, like I've learnt a hell of a lot in those podcasts about myself, terrible interviewer, like at the start, and then slowly got better, I think. And then just the industry, how things work, how things have progressed, Nash as a brand. It's developed me an awful lot, and I've learnt a lot from each guest that's come in, really, even in a fishing context. So I've been very fortunate. Not a lot of people can say they've spent time with those people.
No one, mate. No
in
one
this
can say
environment. So
is there anyone you wish you had got, or anyone any near misses that people from behind the scenes might?
There's obviously the Dons podcast.
Oh yeah. God, yeah. I forgot about
that was a podcast for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Was then removed.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, as podcasts go, was right up there with the Pila and Hoffmans in terms of
it was mental.
There was a lot of edits on that, as you well know, Dan. Terry Ann, mate. I've emailed him. I've rang him. I've tried to go through Nigel Sharp to get him. I've tried to go through his cat, mate, to get him if I could. But unfortunately, Terry, fair play to you, he doesn't need to do it. He'd have been up there. I'd have loved to have done Mortimer and Whitehouse.
Oh, it would have been a mega interview.
Mate, I was...
Yeah.
I'm not going to say close, but I'd talked to...
Going down the right avenue.
Mate, I think it would have... I could have got a close on that by the end of the year. And then I think really, like... Maybe the only other regrets in terms of people would be Geo, Monkey Climber over in. But again, he was sort of in plans. And then, yeah, mate, there's various other, like a few of the Corder boys, loads of the Fox lads, Crowy. Yeah. There was loads to go at, mate.
Yeah, there was a few, which, you know, and all said at the beginning, everyone was really open. There's a few companies that maybe didn't want people to come on, completely understandably as well. Totally. But there's just, it's stories not told. Do you know what I mean? Like, you look at the likes of the Chris Ball one, and it's not to say he was unknown or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but like for them to come on and be able to tell their story, there's so many stories untold, and I would never have heard, you know, that Raysbury story if it wasn't for this podcast. I really wouldn't. And there was although we say like a lot of them have been, you know, you start to get to the end of the pool of anglers. When you really think about it, there is still a lot that would have been.
There was a lot.
You almost had Hayes Mick Brown at one point.
Hayes and Mick Brown. Mate, I filmed for them when I left Angling Direct at the Sitch Pike fishing. I think that might be the last film they did.
Yeah.
So I was in contact with them. Obviously, Matt was over in Norway doing some guiding. Mick was doing a little bit for Fox Rage. And there were various times at which I said, come and fish the church, like, come on. But it's logistically, COVID came, flights. That whole COVID chapter was a nightmare because...
God, yeah, that wasn't long after you started.
Mate, I ended up thank God for like you boys, Nashy and Al, doing their life stories basically, because we couldn't get any external guests in. We were up in the like not decked out photography studio. Now it's plush, but before it was like freezing cold. We were all in like over jackets and stuff. And that was a pretty interesting time. But again, it was around that time. Logistically, it didn't happen. But that was another close one. But I think, yeah, like there's a load to go at when you sit down and think about it, and you start to look at sort of the holes in it. There are plenty of people, but logistically getting them, that's a different kettle of fish completely, because it is what it is. Jakob Varga, nearly a good one. Claudia, another good one. But yeah, and then there's a few standout sort of mess ups. I remember, Tommy will remember this. Oh mate, that first Christmas one, you'd left. We did a Christmas special in Nash's conservatory.
Yeah.
First year, 2020, I think. And I was doing it, and again, this is when I was a lot less savvy in terms of tech. And I think somebody had stumbled over the power cable for the laptop.
Right.
And it had come out.
Right.
So it was recording all the sound.
And you thought you'd lost a lot or something.
I thought I'd lost all the sound, mate. I thought, and I was in there for hours. And like, it was hot. I had a Christmas jumper on. Now she had his fire going.
Yeah.
There was food. Everyone had a few beers. I thought, I've lost all this. And I was panicking. I rang you on the way back, but I managed to, it auto-saved or did whatever it did.
I think we found it, didn't we?
Nightmare. That was a bad one. I'm trying to think if there was any other bad ones. No, mate. I think I've been touch wood.
Yeah. But away from the podcast as well, like on the filming front, you've been in the films with us. You've been in and around the office for 3 years now. You're such a big part of the Nash team as well. So obviously it's going to be a shame to see you go.
It's bittersweet, mate, I think. Yeah. Like, it is. But, and I've had this conversation with everybody individually, mate. It's not like like when something comes to a head and it like goes off in that, like, it's a small industry. I think everybody's understanding of things, opportunities, everybody's like-minded in terms of that. And I think always, regardless of, and it's the same with other people that have gone on to things from Nash or whatever, there's always that bit of you that will always have sort of Nash family at heart. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That amount of time that you spend with people, like whether that be in the office, Henry kicking a football around talking rugby or just being a nutter, whether it be at Dolly Lane Pits with us fishing or whether it be in Burn, do you know what I mean? Those things where you spend so much concerted time with people in such a sort of intense filming situation or whatever it may be, you can't help but be bonded for a long time with that. Do you know what I mean?
And I'm glad it's within the industry because, like you say, because it is so small, you ain't going anywhere. You won't get rid of us. Sort of thing.
It's not another brand. I'm third party, so I'll be drifting around, boys. Don't you worry.
You'll be coming back for you.
Maybe,
can I have this?
Maybe not on a podcast, mate. It's a bit weird being this side, to be fair, as well, having to talk. But
it's. I think as for the podcast, like Alf says, we'll take a break from it. You've got a couple in the bag anyway, so this one actually might go out. And we're saying goodbye. Hassan's leaving Nash, but then there might be a couple afterwards, which you've already got in the bag. But as for the next few weeks, this will be it, mate.
Madness, isn't it, mate? Feels a bit weird. I'm not going to lie. But a massive thank you. Thank you to everyone at Nash. Thank you to you guys primarily for watching and listening, because without it, it would have been a pretty short-lived old escapade.
Yeah, exactly. You got all the listeners who actually kept it going.
Yeah,
to thank for your last 3.5 years of employment. Yeah, like you say,
you have fed my kids, so thank you very much. All right. Yeah, absolutely. Fair play to you. And to all the guests, I'll say that again, because without them, it ain't the same. You lot for supporting it. I can't thank everybody enough. I will hopefully see you at some point in the future at a different point, different company. Mm-hmm. But until that point, a massive thank you finally. Thank you to you guys.
And most of all, thank you for stitching it all together, because without you, it wouldn't have happened. So thank you, mate, and best of luck in the future.
Big love, your gents. Cheers, boys.